He says, but Bruno, he says, we have made changes and we continue to make changes. And he first spoke about the drug testing and so forth, and he mentioned the name of Dr. Joseph Maroon, who's from here in Pittsburgh and whom I happen to know very well because Dr. Maroon is a neurosurgeon and one with a tremendous reputation. And also he operated on me, and he helped me tremendously because I was in pretty bad shape after 20-some years of wrestling. And he put me back on my feet. He helped me out tremendously. But I got to know him. We got to be friends, and I got to know him pretty darn well. Now, when they told me that they put him in charge of their overall wellness program, but the drug testing and all that, I started watching wrestling after I spoke to Paul Levesque, or Triple H, if you will. I started watching it, and I absolutely saw the change in the wrestlers. I didn't see guys like Hulk Hogan, or the Ultimate Warrior, the Road Warriors, the British Bulldogs, so many others, Paul Orndorff, so many others that were very obvious as far as to, what they were doing. And when I look at it today, as I watched it for a couple of months, as I told Paul that I wanted to see before we spoke again, there's a couple guys that are big, but if I look at the majority of the guys there, they look very athletic. I don't want to put them down that they don't look like anything. They look very athletic, but I don't see that look. I don't see the look of this like the people that I've mentioned in the past. Now, there's a couple guys, like somebody questions about this, what's the name, Ryback or something?
Ryback, yep.
But keep in mind that just because a guy is big like that, it does not necessarily mean, to me, a real steroid user has that look about him that is, to me, it's obvious when I see one of those guys. Keep in mind that in my day, in my prime, for example, back in the late 50s and early and throughout the 60s and even up to the middle 70s, I was a 275-pound guy, and I was very thick-muscled. I don't know how old you guys are, if you were too young to be around back in those days. Later, when I broke my neck and I was in the hospital for a month, I dropped my weight down to about 250 and even to 245, and I decided as I was getting older to maintain that weight. But if you'd seen me in the late 50s and throughout the 60s and up to the middle 70s, I was a 275-pound guy. I never used drugs of any kind. Heck, I wouldn't even take an aspirin in those days. And so to suggest that somebody can't get big and muscled without the use of drugs is absolutely ridiculous. When I look at that guy like this Ryback, I don't know if he's on anything. By that I mean, because they tell me passes the test, Dr. Maroon, because I questioned some of the guys that looked a little, that could be. And supposedly they've tested, and they do more sophisticated testing and so forth. Now, there's certain growth hormone that you cannot test for. If somebody's on that, well, that could be a different ballgame. But to suggest that one cannot develop himself impressively, that's not correct either, because I go back to my era. I don't know if you guys ever remember Hercules Cortez, or known as Pepe Chicharo, another name he used. He was a big, powerful, muscle guy. And this was before we even heard the word steroids. And there were a number of guys back then. So, but when I look at the overall picture, I don't see steroid guys anymore in that organization. So I became convinced, especially after meeting with Dr. Maroon and him explaining to me the kind of testing that they were doing and so forth. Then I spoke to Paul Levesque again, and again now he told me about all the other changes that they want to make it more family-friendly. And I'm watching for that, and I saw there is no nudity in there. There is no vulgarity, and as you guys know, if you've been watching it through the years, there certainly was plenty of that. And the profanity that was being used in the past, it was appalling to me. To have guys speak like they did, and you look at the audience, and there were children and so forth, which shame, in my opinion, shame on the parents who would expose their children to that kind of behavior. But